Hey, welcome to another Monday moment. I just wanted to build on last Monday's message concerning Israel. I wanted to talk about Israel a little further. I couldn't help but think about the book of Isaiah. Did you know that the book of Isaiah is often called a miniature Bible? It has 66 chapters, just like there are 66 books. And the first 37 have Old Testament themes like judgment and sin. And the last 27 chapters have New Testament themes like redemption and hope and even the Messiah. But did you also know that in the book of Isaiah, 25 out of the 31 times that God is referred to as the Holy One of Israel, 25 of those times are in the book of Isaiah. He's called the Holy One of Israel. Why would that be one of God's names if it weren't true? And if God had written off Israel and now it's a new covenant and the old covenant has been done away with, and Israel's no longer included in that in biblical prophecy, then why would God be called the Holy One of Israel? Is he no longer holy? Is he no longer the God of Israel? Of course, he's still the God of Israel. And I also can't help but think about Zechariah chapter 14. It says, "Behold, a day is coming for the Lord when the spoil taken from you will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem. The battle in the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Half of the city shall go into exile. The rest of the people shall be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. On that day, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives that lies before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west by a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall move northward and the other half southward." And we'll see this again referenced in Acts 1, verse 11. "Men, why are you staring up into the sky? The same way that he left, he's going to return," speaking about Jesus' ascension. If God had nothing to do with Israel any longer, that they were written off, that the church has replaced Israel, it's called supersessionism. The church has superseded Israel. Israel no longer matters. Why is Jesus returning to Jerusalem then? Why is he called the Holy One of Israel then? I find that it's more consistent that God has a great plan for Israel. We know that the gospel came to the Jew first and then to the Gentile, and that God hasn't written Israel off. And then I'll close again with Romans 11, and I just can't seem to get away from what it says here. It says, "Lest you be wise in your own sight," and I think we're all in danger of that. And aren't we as a church even bordering on the possibility of maybe being a little anti-Semitic? Now, I know that those that hold to a replacement theology would never see themselves as anti-Semitic, but aren't we bordering on that if we feel like God has done away with the Jewish people and there's no plan for them? It says, "I don't want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening has come upon Israel." Notice that it's partial. Notice that it's not complete. It's a partial hardening. "Until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in." Until. And so there's a period where we Gentiles get to come in, and we're grafted in. We get to come in, and in this way, all Israel will be saved. All Israel will be saved. That's what it says in Romans 11:26, and then it finishes by saying in verse 29, "For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." You would have to convince me that the calling of God upon the nation of Israel no longer is in place. I believe that it is, and God's callings are irrevocable. I think his call still goes out to Israel. I believe what Scripture says when it says that all Israel will be saved. I believe that it is only a partial hardening right now until the fullness of the Gentiles have all come in. There'll be a completion of the time that Gentiles can come to know the Lord. And then I believe all Israel is going to be saved, just like Scripture says. I don't believe that God's written off Israel. I believe that God has a plan for Israel, just like he has a plan for you and I. And I count it a privilege to be grafted in. And I don't believe God's going to abandon the natural branches as you would read in Romans 11. So I hope that this sits well and right with you until we meet again. God bless. See you soon.